Welcome to our podcast, Breaking Barriers, Collaborative Solutions to Housing Delivery. I am Phoebe Evans-Khan, a Senior Technical Coordinator from Bugler Development, and I've been part of the Housing Forum's Future Network programme. On today's podcast, we have a guest, Oliver Lowrie, who is the Director of Ackroyd Lowrie. Tell us a bit about yourself, Ollie.
Hi Phoebe, thanks very much for having me. I'm Oliver Lowrie, Director of Ackroyd Lowrie. We are architects specialising in regeneration and retrofit projects, mostly in London, but across the UK.
So for those listening at home that aren't too familiar with the Building Safety Act, could you give us a brief overview of what it is?
So I'm sure a lot of the listeners will know it was brought in after Grenfell. It's changed primary legislation with the intention of increasing accountability, strengthening regulation and raising standards in the built environment, I think all of which are very laudable aims. The main things that have changed on a sort of day to day, so this applies to all buildings, not just buildings over 18 metres, and that's clarity over accountability. So rather than saying to your building control approved inspector, will you sign this off? You now have to be comfortable that the buildings are compliant yourself. The golden thread of information, that applies to all buildings, so better maintenance of the documentation. And then extended liability, so up to 30 years now, kind of long stop rather than the 12 to 15 before. So that applies to all projects. And then the stuff that that is grabbing the headlines is the new building safety regulator, which is set up just to govern buildings over 18 metres or 7 stories with one residential unit or more. And then the sort of infamous gateway system, so gateway 1, 2 and 3, which is managed by the building safety regulator. A lot of the change to the industry has been really positive, but the way that the building safety regulator are managing the gateway system has been very problematic for the people going through the gateways. You know, we are now 3 years on. That is happening at Gateway 2. It will continue to happen at Gateway 3. We're not even at, many projects haven't got to Gateway 3 yet. Completions are down 12% from last year and about, I think it was 20% from just after COVID. Building completions in London are going to continue to drop unless, and it's got to be a brave politician to stand up and say that I think that part of the legacy of Grenfell has been implemented wrongly. But I do feel like now you've got a new housing minister, there needs to be bravery around this issue. We all want safer buildings. We all want the legacy of Grenfell to be one where, the industry changes. I think that change is starting to happen. And I think largely the way that the way that kind of building safety is being policed and the changes to actual secondary legislation like Part B, all of those changes make for very, very, very safe buildings. And I think the way that the intention of the gateways is also very positive in that it means that your design teams are having to come together and collaborate much earlier in the project with subcontractor teams. And that means you really are understanding what building it is you're going to build before you get on site. But the way that the gateways are being policed with no ability to iterate, and it's just wrong or right, reject or pass, and the pass rates are so low.
So with these challenges in relation to the Building Safety Act, what do you feel are the most significant barriers into delivering the 1.5 million homes the government have promised?
So I've run Ackroyd Lowrie for 10 years, 11 years, something like that. And when we started, we did quite a lot of housing because developers made money delivering housing. Developers in the time that I've been running this business have just shifted their emphasis from trying to deliver housing to maybe trying to deliver hotels or trying to deliver student residential or co-living, where the sort of tax regime is slightly different. So all of that stuff is meant that delivering housing was already challenging. You've got higher cost of borrowing, you've got depressed housing, house prices are not going up, they're flatlining, if anything, maybe going down. And then you've got this raft of legislation where I suppose, the amount of money that can be made from a housing project is being reduced. And then you add in the gateways. And so it's just something's got to give, and you're seeing what's got to give. What is giving is housing delivery numbers. We have to incentivize the delivery of housing, and one of the ways to incentivize it is to make people make money from it. you can't forget that. If you just continue to overtax people, they won't deliver it. They'll deliver anything but housing.
So what construction projects do you think are being hindered the most by the barriers of the Building Safety Act?
The Building Safety Act, in the way that it applies itself to most projects, hasn't made a monumental shift in the sort of timelines of projects. It's just clarification over accountability. But for those relevant buildings, which are ones that have to go through the gateways, and those are the ones that are predominantly affected. So those are any building that's over 18 metres or 7 stories and contains one residential unit or more. There's talk of the BSR, the gateways also coming into force for other sectors also aren't currently covered. But at the moment, it's predominantly residential focused, and it's those buildings that are over 18 metres or 7 stories. So it's predominantly impacting cities like London, Manchester, Liverpool, where there is there's a sort of reliance on taller buildings to justify land values.
Considering the barriers that we face, what do you feel are the most significant collaborative solutions within the industry? So not just for yourself as an architect, but for developers, architects, engineers.
What you're seeing with the Building Safety Act is definitely, we are finding, trying to work with the same partners again and again. So particularly on gateway projects, making sure that we're rinsing and repeating with our sort of favoured consultant team, favoured contracting team, and actually the whole contracting is completely changing as well. So you're getting the contractor coming on board before construction under a PCSA to be part of the design team, and I'm all for that. So that has really changed the collaborative nature of design and delivery, and I've enjoyed that. It doesn't always work. We've had experiences where we're going through the gateways with the contractor on a PCSA, and then for whatever reason that contractor is not chosen to carry on with the project, and then a new contractor comes in, and you've got to then renegotiate the gateways with a new contractor. And collaboration works great when you've got one contractor in control. It doesn't really then work to swap them out. But that's, I think, been very positive. I think the other thing that Labour have committed to the 1.5 million homes. I think if you just look at housing stats over a long period of time, typically the private sector will deliver between 180 and 200,000 homes per year. And really that doesn't change a lot if you look over 30 years, even longer. Kind of, if you even it out, that's pretty consistent. If you want to deliver 300,000 a year, then the balance typically in the past has been made up by public sector. So in the kind of post-war era, the government essentially, or local authorities, building housing. The question the government's got to ask itself is that what it wants to do? Does it want to either set up, do Homes England go out and build homes? Do local authorities build homes? I know a lot of local authorities are actually building fewer homes than they were before because they're dealing with the cost of their borrowing going up, and a lot of the other things that they have to pay for, like temporary accommodation, being on the rise. So, my personal experience, and I'm sure, I feel reasonably sure numbers will back me up, is that housing delivery by local authorities is actually going down. Housing associations are also struggling often because they've got these legacy projects where they might have damp or cladding issues. So they haven't got a lot of cash sitting around to deliver. So you're like, okay, looking around, who else is going to deliver this, 120 extra thousand homes that we need per year to get up to our 300,000 per year? And I'd say that it's another collaborative solution. I think that the way forward would be for the private sector and the so local authorities and private developers JVing, which they are doing, and I think more of that needs to be encouraged.
And do you feel that AI technology could influence some collaborative solutions in the industry with the issues that we're facing? I think the development of AI has any positive impact on this?
Yes, but I think the particular challenges of the UK, namely the gateways, mean that it's quite difficult to scale a solution. Can there be a scaled up solution to delivering housing? Yes. Can there be a scaled up solution to getting through the gateways? No, right? Because our initial instinct. So I would describe myself as an entrepreneur who happens to be an architect. So I'm always looking for innovative ways that business can solve problems. That's why I love architecture, because it's problem solving. So we were like, okay, we're looking at this quite complicated legislation, the Building Safety Act, but a lot of it is prescriptive, or it was meant to be. It was meant to be like, just show your working of how your building satisfies the functional requirements. The building safety of the building regulations, and you're through. And we were like, okay, cool. Well, surely we could like script a thing to do this. It can look through our drawings. It can correct. It can tell us what we need to correct. It can put together a narrative document and, control Apple building safety submission. So we went to our non-exec and we said, look, we've got, there's a problem here. It's a big problem. Housing delivery is being held up by the Building Safety Act. We think that we can build a kind of AI-enabled tool to help people navigate it. And he was like, great, tell me where I sign up and we can launch this in the UK, then America, then Australia. I went, oh, no. This is a problem that only exists in the UK. And he was like, well, that's the problem. You can't raise a lot of capital to develop an AI solution for a problem that only exists in one country, which is one of the reasons why we should be aligning ourselves with other countries so that we can come up with AI solutions. And inevitably AI will impact on every industry. So, I'm not naive to the fact that architecture will be impacted. But, unfortunately for architecture, it is so complicated that, it's going to take a very powerful set of AI and robots to do some of the complex things that we do at the moment because it is so challenging.
So in regards to the Building Safety Act, what is your biggest concern?
A lot of the Building Safety Act I don't have a concern with in that, largely I think it's positive in what it's trying to achieve. Bit that I have a concern over is the gateways. And I think my biggest concern is that nobody on a political side has the bravery to put their head above the parapet and say that the implementation of this policy that is well-meaning is not fit for purpose. The more that you look into this, the more it becomes incredibly subjective. And that's what bureaucracy does. It makes, at the start, you're like, well, let's judge a building. Is it safe or not safe? Let's put together a load of experts and they will say whether it is safe or not safe. And you're like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. But then you get them all together and all these specialists are like, well, we can't possibly tell if this is right or wrong because we need to get CFD modelling. So now on every building, whether it's naturally ventilated or mechanical ventilated that's over 80 metres, we're finding that for a Building Safety Act application, you have to CFD model everything and then you have to get your CFD modelling peer reviewed because otherwise the BSA are saying, well, there's not enough information to know whether it's safe or not. And like I can see that. I can see why that is the position, but I don't think that was anybody's intentional. At the start when it was conceived, there's nothing written that you need to CFD analysis all of your smoke vents, but it is the natural progression of bureaucracy to make more things. And does that all have to happen up front before you put a spade in the ground? Because that's the current system. And is that what everybody intended? Because, just the time periods on that, why, people are complaining about 36 weeks being the average time for one of these cases to be decided. What about that year beforehand where you're having to do the CFD analysis, which takes 12 weeks, and then you're having to get 8 weeks for it to be peer reviewed. Plus, and that in every different part of the building regulations has a series of people who are going off, doing a lot of work, having it reviewed, coming back, putting that application in, only for it to be reviewed very slowly and potentially dismissed. It's hugely inefficient. And my concern is that nobody has the bravery to say that.
So then what would you say you're most optimistic about?
We've seen erosion of the role of the architect from where it used to be, say, in the 60s, right, before my time. But like we were the master builders, we were in control of everything. And then we gradually this is the perception. I think building became more specialised and lots of things needed to be done by specialists. That's one view. Other people are like, well, we let it be eroded. But the reality is now that architects are not super empowered in projects. What the Building Safety Act is doing now is it's legislation that's saying, architects, you need to be the principal designer. And the principal designer role is governed in law, and you are very responsible for ensuring that the rest of the team are competent and that you are, you're criminally liable for your duties, which are these, and you have to make sure that you are running that team and making sure they're all putting their application in a way that is compliant with the legislation, otherwise it's going to get kicked out. Do we shirk that or do we lean into it? We've decided to lean into it. So we have set up, we've recruited qualified PD, we've got, a head of technical, we've got a whole technical team because we're like, this is an opportunity for architects to take back that thing that everybody thinks about us is that we're dreamers and we don't understand the reality of how to deliver projects. Well, primary legislation just made us the people responsible for building safety, in that PD role. This is our time to not shirk. This is our time to lean in, take responsibility, because that is how, with great responsibility comes great power. It's the reverse of Spider-Man. We need to get back power by taking responsibility. And so that's what we're doing. So that's what makes me optimistic.
Well, thank you, Ollie, for taking your time and sharing your thoughts on today's podcast.
Pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Phoebe Evans-Khan, and this has been the Breaking Barriers Collaborative Solutions to Housing Delivery podcast.